TV's primetime lineup. Weeknights starting at 7/6 Central, only on Current TV.
13 months after he led the New Orleans Saints to their first Super Bowl win, the team's head coach has been suspended for 12 months without pay for being involved in a bounty hunting program. But in our number 2 story, the most severe punishment in NFL coaching history comes the same day over-the-top quarterback Tim Tebow is traded to the New York Jets or the Jacksonville Jaguars, or he isn't. Commissioner Roger Goodell punished more than just Coach Sean Payton in the Saints bounty case. From 2009 to this past season, it was found that the New Orleans defense employed a program in which players were given cash incentives to injure members of the opposing team. General Manager Mickey Loomis suspended for the first 8 regular season games. Saints assistant head coach Joe Vitt suspended 6 games, fined $100,000. The organization fined $500,000 and lose 2 second-round draft picks. But the harshest punishment was saved for former defensive coordinator Greg Williams, now the St. Louis Rams, who was deemed to be the mastermind of the program. He's suspended indefinitely without pay, with his case to be reviewed after the 2012 season to see if maybe he'll be reinstated then. And then there was the trade, maybe, of the very well-known, sometimes controversial NFL quarterback who was put out of work yesterday when Peyton Manning signed with the Denver Broncos, a trade that may or may not have happened. 2007 Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow, the only player ever to appear in an anti-abortion commercial during the Super Bowl, brought Denver into the playoffs last year. But after Manning signed with his team, he was traded to the New York Jets with a 7th-round pick in the upcoming college draft for a 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick. Only then, apparently, did the Jets realize the Broncos had paid Tebow a salary advance of $5 million, and the Broncos wanted the Jets to pay them that amount. The thing is thus in limbo, with Tebow supposedly having the right to approve a trade to the Jets or Jacksonville unless Denver makes the choice. And with that confusing information behind us, let's bring in Deadspin assignment editor Tim Burke. Thanks for your time tonight, Tim.
Hi, Keith. It's good to be again with you.
Well, what the hell is going on with Tim Tebow? Is this the shortest tenure as a New York Jet since Bill Belichick's 5 minutes as head coach during the news conference 10, 15 years ago?
This is unbelievable, Keith. And like our colleague from The Nation, Dave Zirin, put it earlier today, the New York Jets are not a football franchise. They're a reality show. And now it seems that this reality show aspect has somehow funneled its way through to Denver in messing up the details of this trade and now opening it back up for him to come to his hometown of Jacksonville.
So Adam Schefter, who's done good work on this story for ESPN, tweeted in the last half an hour 2 seemingly contradictory things. Tebow being allowed to pick the team he wants to go to. He picks the trade, Jets or Jacksonville. And then he sent, Denver says it will do the trade that is best for its franchise, Jets or Jags. Do we have any idea? These wouldn't seem to be mutually exclusive.
Well, it's a little weird being here in Jacksonville because Tim Tebow is already the most polarizing player in the NFL. And, that filters down to the team support that he has, in which you have this wide gap of supporters in Jacksonville who really want Tebow to come, and then a lot of people who think they have the best interest of the team, that is to say they want to see the Jags win, who were so unbelievably excited and are now, tragically befallen hearing that the trade deal with the Jets has gone through. And the real question is, if Tim Tebow chooses, if he's allowed to choose, if we really know that that's the case, if he chooses Jacksonville, that'll really bolster the case of the people who want him to be here. If for some reason he chooses the Jets, he suddenly turned his back on his hometown. Well, and we have all this drama that's built in, which is a completely sort of contrary to the standard NFL narrative.
Well, I'll interrupt you by saying that apparently he's going to turn his back on his hometown because Schefter has now tweeted, Denver has agreed to trade Tim Tebow and a 7th-round pick to the Jets for New York's 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick. And he doesn't say anything else about whether or not there's the cash payment to make up for the $5 million they gave him in advance. Having thoroughly confused everybody about this, thanks, Mr. Tebow, let me ask you about the bounty suspension, which still strikes me as the more imperative of these stories. I'm confused by this. It seems to me, and it's been 2 years since I did the pregame show for NBC, so maybe the NFL has changed in the last 2 seasons. But back in my day, was not the purpose of every play to have 2 guys at least hit each other? Were the Saints ever accused of being especially dirty players? What are they being punished technically for?
Well, in what seems like a really simple but harsh punishment for this, offensive bounty system, I think is a lot more complicated and a little more nuanced, especially because, the NFL is in a really bad place with its veterans and despite all the hugs and happiness that came when the lockout ended, the NFL is still not on the best of terms with the players' union. And the NFL is doing its best to reform its image and show, hey, we really care about player safety. And what's the best way that they can do that is to drop the biggest punishment down for an instance of the bounty system that became public and to really lay it out on the coach, the public face of the franchise, and that's Sean Payton.
But what's the difference between bounties, even if you get past the idea that they're not allowable? What's the difference between bounties for injuring players and giving the NFL sack leader a raise for putting his quarterback or the other quarterbacks on their backs as much as possible?
I think a lot of this is, again, dealing with some of the lawsuits that have come from the former players and the NFL doing its best to come out there and say, we're not going to stand for any of this, even though what Joe Horn just said earlier today, that the bounty system exists in every single NFL locker room. It's just the specific case that Greg Williams, as a member of the management, was helping to fund and organize the bounty system, that I think that Roger Goodell, in his efforts to be the sergeant at arms of everyone's lives in the NFL, has really taken this upon himself to let everybody know that any of this sort of activity is not gonna be tolerated, even if it in reality it is at every single other NFL club.
Unless you're going to change the rules so that you get fined if you cause somebody else to get injured. I don't know where they're going with this. But lastly, basically a yes or no on this. The hot story about this was that the player who let the NFL know about this, who snitched, was probably the least justice-oriented player in the NFL in the last 10 years. Is it true? Was Jeremy Shockey Fredo in this equation?
Whether or not I knew that, Keith, I'm not necessarily sure. I'd be happy to share it, simply because I don't necessarily know if a culture that's specifically dealing with intent to injure people should be, should be targeted that way as a snitch.
Tim Burke of the seminal sports website Deadspin. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Keith.
If that mid-moment prayer thing is called Tebowing, do we call the midweek political gaffe Romneying? The latest in the seemingly endless supply, next.
This is Genco Services, McAllen, Texas. In here, heavy